The device is pointing at empty stone. I am still standing where episode 66 ended. The canvas bag is open in my hand. The second key is inside it. Key 47 is in my jacket pocket. Maren is 20 meters to my left, facing the prepared section. Hannah is behind me with the camera. None of us have moved. I want to record what the device is doing precisely because it is behaving in a way I have not seen before, and the distinction matters. It is not pointing in the way it pointed toward the accumulation site, or toward the inventory page in the chart room, or toward Maren when she came aboard the Morwenna. Those were directional readings. The device orienting toward a source, the way a compass orients toward north. This is different. The tone is not pulling toward the prepared stone the way it pulled toward those targets. It is sitting at the prepared stone. Settled. The quality of a measurement that has found its reference point and stopped seeking. The device has been in continuous mode since the title shelf. It has been directional since the chart room. What it is now is neither of those things exactly. It is stationed. That is the closest word I have. I write it down. Stationed. And I note that I am using the word as a description of behavior, not a claim about intent. I walk toward Maren and the prepared section. Slowly. The tone does not change as I close the distance, does not sharpen, does not gain the density I noticed during the transit. It holds. Whatever the instrument is registering from this surface, it was already registering it fully from 20 meters away. I stop 3 meters from the face. The surface preparation is more evident at this distance. I noted it as smoothing yesterday. The roughness of the natural stone worked down, texture altered. Standing close, I can see it is more deliberate than that, not abraded uniformly. The smoothing follows lines, not visible lines, not carved lines, but structural lines. The surface treatment changes direction at specific points, creating sections of different texture that together imply a geometry without stating it. Like the scoring lines beneath a careful drawing, the kind of preparation that comes before the mark, not after. I tell Hannah to come and look at the surface treatment carefully. She comes and stands beside me, and I watch her process it the same way I did. First the general smoothing, then the directionality of it, then the implied structure. She says, guidelines. Not carved, implied by surface treatment. Whoever worked this stone prepared it to receive a specific mark in a specific position, using geometry they already had in mind. And the geometry is still here in the texture of the stone, even though the mark was never made. Hannah steps back and looks at the whole prepared section from a slight distance. She is calibrating scale, how wide the intended mark would be based on the guide geometry, how tall where the center sits. She says, it's large. Whatever was meant to go here, it's not small. I ask her how large. She measures with her hands against the stone without touching it. Approximately 60 centimeters wide, 40 centimeters tall. A significant mark. Not an annotation, not a reference point, a primary element. She goes back to the organized section to the right of the prepared space. The 4 meters of existing marks I described yesterday as a sentence. She stands in front of it and moves slowly from left to right, reading it the way she reads her grid map, finding the structure before the content. She says after a long moment, the sentence ends here, the last mark stops. She indicates a position at the rightmost edge of the organized section, immediately adjacent to the prepared space. There's a pause, the spacing changes, opens up, and then the stone was prepared, and then nothing was put there. I ask if the pause is structural or accidental. She says, structural. The spacing across the rest of the organized section is consistent. The gap before the prepared area is deliberate. Something was meant to complete the sequence, and it was never placed. I write, mark system structured as syntax. Prepared section equals terminal position. The sequence is incomplete at the final element. I look at the canvas bag in my hand. Maren has not moved from in front of the prepared section. She has been there since before I walked over, And her stillness is the specific kind she has when she is monitoring rather than thinking, watching for a particular behavior, not working toward a conclusion. I ask her, keeping it simple, I ask her if she has seen this kind of preparation before. Not the symbols, the prepared but unused section. She says, once, at a different site, smaller. I wait. She says, the stone was prepared the same way, guide geometry present, mark never placed. She pauses. When someone brought the right object close to the surface, the guidelines became visible, fully, not implied, cut, as though they had been there all along and just become legible. I ask what happened after that. She says, I didn't find out. I wasn't the one who brought the object. She looks at the stone. The person who did described it afterward. They said the surface completed itself. She stops. Then she stopped describing it. She stopped most things after that. That is the most specific warning she has given since she came aboard. Framed as history, not theory. Someone she knew, not herself this time. A different person. Procedural knowledge earned through proximity to someone else's mistake. I do not ask for more. I note it. Hannah has come back from the organized section. She says, I want to try something before anyone brings anything closer. She takes a piece of chalk from her chart kit, the soft kind she uses for temporary grid marks on the boat deck, and she holds it near the prepared surface without touching it. Not to mark the stone, to check something. She says, I want to see if the guide geometry is consistent across the whole section or concentrated in one area. She moves the chalk slowly along the prepared surface, not touching, watching the stone texture shift as she changes angle and position relative to the light. After a minute, she marks something on her notepad. A rough sketch, lines and arcs, the implied geometry translated into a form she can work with. She shows me the sketch. The guide geometry is not uniform across the section. It concentrates toward the upper center, a point approximately where the mark's center of mass would be if the full 60 by 40 element were placed here. The preparation radiates outward from that point, more refined near the center, rougher at the edges. The stone was prepared from the inside out. Whoever worked it started at the center point and worked outward, which is the opposite of how you would approach a surface if you were simply smoothing it. You would smooth from outside to inside. Working inside out means you knew exactly where the center would be before you began. Hannah taps the center point on her sketch. She says, whatever belongs here, it belongs here specifically. This isn't a general preparation. It's a fitting. The word lands with more weight than she probably intended. A fitting. The stone prepared to receive something of known dimension and known center point. Not a mark to be drawn, a mark to be placed. I look at the canvas bag again. Maren says, without preamble, keep the keys separate. I say I have not suggested otherwise. She says, I know. I'm saying it now because the site is starting to respond to their presence, and once it begins, it doesn't stop between stages. It goes continuously. She looks at the stone face, not at me. Keep them in separate hands. Don't let them rest near each other. I take the second key out of the canvas bag and hold it in my right hand. Key 47 is in my jacket pocket. I move my left hand to the outside of the pocket, keeping them separated by my body's width. The device tone modulates. Not a shift in direction, not the density increase or the secondary frequency. A modulation. A slight oscillation in the continuous tone, a breathing quality it has not had before, as though the tone is now moving between 2 points rather than holding one. I turn slowly, checking whether the direction has changed. It has not. Still stationed at the prepared stone. But the character of the tone is different. It is no longer measuring from a single source. It is moving between the keys. The oscillation has a rhythm, a period I can count. I count it 3 times, 11 seconds. The same interval as Rook. The same interval as the tidal shelf when we arrived at the accumulation site. The same interval that has appeared at every structurally significant moment in this investigation. I tell Hannah, She looks up from her notepad and begins counting silently with me through one full cycle. 11 seconds. She writes it down without comment, which is what she does when a piece of evidence fits a pattern she already suspected but was not ready to state. The site is counting with the keys present. Something in the system has registered the pair and is running the interval. I move the second key toward the prepared stone. Not close. I stop at arm's length from the surface, key extended but not near contact. The oscillation changes. The interval shortens. I step back. It returns to 11 seconds. I step forward again. It shortens again. I do this 3 more times. Each time, the interval responds consistently to my distance from the surface, not to the key's proximity alone, because I try holding the key out at the same distance while stepping back myself, and the response follows my position, not just the key's position. The system is not reading the key in isolation. It is reading the relationship between the key, the bearer, and the stone. Hannah watches this sequence. She says, "It needs both." I say, "The key and the stone." She says, "The key and the person holding it." She points to the prepared section. The mark isn't just an object. It's a contact event. Like the tidal shelf depression, it wasn't the stone that opened access. It was your hand in the stone. I think about that. The worn depression at the tidal shelf, the hand-shaped hollow that activated the access to the accumulation site. Not a key, not a device. A person's hand in a prepared space. Direct contact between an investigator and a site designed to receive that contact. This stone was prepared for something similar. An object of specific dimensions, held by a specific kind of person, placed at a specific point. Not merely placed, fitted. I step back from the surface and the oscillation returns to 11 seconds and holds there. Maren exhales, which I note because she very rarely makes sounds she did not intend to make. She is watching the device, not me. Hannah has moved back to the organized section one more time. She is working the syntax question, trying to understand what the incomplete sentence says, whether the existing marks give enough structure to infer what the missing element would need to express. She works at this for a long time. I continue documenting device behavior near the prepared section, systematically moving through different distances and positions, mapping the interval response, building a record of how the system reads the pair in relation to the site. The hull interval from the launch, the slow vibration we felt through the boat during approach, has been present at the rock shelf since we came ashore. I have been hearing it rather than feeling it for most of the time here. Standing at the prepared section now, key in hand, I feel it again through the soles of my boots. Low. Structural. A vibration that comes up from the stone itself rather than from any surface motion. The rock shelf is resonating. Not continuously. In intervals, the same 11-second period. The site is already running this interval on its own, has been running it before we arrived, was running it when we felt it through the launch hull on approach. We did not bring the interval to the site. We arrived at a site that was already keeping it. The pair of keys in proximity has not started the count. It has joined it. I write that distinction down 3 times because it matters for what the system is and is not doing. The site is not reacting to the keys. The site was already active. The keys have become legible to it, or it has become legible to them. I am not certain which direction that relationship runs, and I do not have enough information to determine it yet. Hannah comes back. She stands beside me and looks at the prepared stone and says quietly, "The existing marks describe a condition. The missing mark describes a consequence." She pauses. I can't read the condition, but the structure implies, if the condition is met, the consequence follows. The prepared section is where the consequence would be recorded. I look at the stone, at the guide geometry radiating from the center point, at the fitting prepared for something of known dimension. I look at the second key in my right hand. 60 by 40 would be approximately right for a key displayed flat against a surface. The dimensions align. I do not say this to Hannah. I write it in my notes, small, at the bottom of the page. Maren is standing at the edge of the rock shelf now, facing the water. She has moved away from the prepared section. I watch her for a moment, and she says, without turning, "Something is about to check again." I ask what she means. She says, "The same thing that happened in the chart room. The system runs an interval and then pauses. The pause is assessment. If you're still there when it resumes, you're recorded as present." I look at the device. The oscillation is still running. 11-second interval, moving between the keys. I count down from 11. At 0, the device tone stops. Complete silence. The whole vibration stops. The rock shelf goes still under my boots. Hannah goes very still. Maren does not move. 1 second, 2, 3. The tone resumes. The vibration returns. The interval continues from where it stopped, as if the pause was a single beat in a longer rhythm, a breath taken in the middle of a sentence. Maren says, "Now you're recorded." She says it the way she says everything, factual, procedural, without weight. As if being recorded by a pre-archived system on a coastal rock shelf is something that happens and has happened before and will happen again, and the appropriate response is to note it and continue. I look at the second key. I look at the prepared stone. The device oscillation has changed. The movement between the keys is still present, but beneath it, beneath the 11-second interval, beneath the primary continuous tone, the secondary frequency has returned. The one that first appeared when the keys neared each other in the chart room. Low, almost below hearing. Not from the keys this time, from the stone. The guidelines in the prepared section are visible, not implied by texture and light angle. Cut. Fully. The shallow arcs and reference points that Hannah had barely been able to trace this morning are now clear incisions in the stone surface, as though they had been there all along and just become legible. Hannah says, very quietly, "It completed the preparation." The stone did not wait to be marked. It marked itself.